Hey guys, tonight we're setting off on a journey through the winding, foggy streets of an English-speaking town. It's late, maybe the kind of late where the world feels like it's just you and the whispers of the night air. As you stroll through these quiet alleys, your footsteps echo softly in the distance, and the houses on each side look like something out of a dream. Everything is peaceful, but strangely, it feels like something or someone has been here before, leaving behind traces of English words that you're only starting to notice. You probably won't survive this if you don't pay attention to every little detail. You've just stepped into a world where every word you hear is an opportunity for a new discovery. It's like being in a haunted house, but instead of ghostly figures, you'll encounter forgotten English phrases, lost words, and quirky idioms. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and comment where you're listening from, and tell me your local time. I'm always curious about where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As you continue your walk down this foggy street, you overhear a conversation between two elderly neighbors. One says, "The fog's so thick, it could swallow a city whole." The other agrees, "Aye," and just like that, the words disappear. These neighbors are speaking in metaphors, of course, but swallow a city whole, what does that mean exactly? It's an English idiom that's meant to describe something so dense, so heavy, it could overpower everything else. It's how fog, in all its thick mystery, seems to envelop everything. But notice the second part, just like that, the words disappear. Now, that's another gem. Words disappear. It's like language slipping through your fingers when you least expect it. Historians still argue whether the English language, as we know it today, really evolved from the combination of Old English and Norman French, or if it's more influenced by a series of different invasions and migrations. Either way, English has always had a knack for twisting itself into something new, just as this fog twists the shapes around you. Suddenly, as if on cue, the fog clears enough to reveal an old, worn-out cafe. Copyright. You push the door open and hear the bell above you ring softly. As you enter, a familiar scene unfolds. A man in a worn sweater, half laughing, half grumbling at the coffee machine. He turns to you and says, "Well, if it isn't the ghost of my last mistake." Another perfect example of English idioms creeping into everyday life. You can almost see how phrases like these lived on through the centuries, shifting and changing as they went along. As you sit down at a small table by the window, you can't help but wonder how idioms like the one the man just said are born. The ghost of my last mistake is a curious one. What does that mean? Really? It's a way of saying that the mistakes of the past seem to haunt you, lingering around like something you can't escape. English idioms have a funny way of making complex emotions feel a little more tangible, don't they? But then, you're pulled out of your thoughts by the sound of someone asking about the coffee. "Is this the same blend they use at that place on 5th?" The person behind you asks, their accent shifting with every word, like waves gently rolling in from the ocean. You turn, but it's not the barista, it's a new customer who seems utterly fascinated by the subject of coffee blends. "Yeah," the barista replies with a half smile, "but this one's from a special batch we ordered." You could say it's a ghost roasted. That's right, ghost roasted. English slang at its finest. You're not sure if that's a thing, but it definitely sounds like something a coffee snob would say. Ghost roasted coffee? Maybe it's a term invented to sound mysterious or otherworldly. A marketing tool to give a simple coffee a mysterious edge. But what if it's not? What if ghost roasting is, in fact, an actual method used by some obscure coffee roasters somewhere? Historians still argue whether the many different coffee brewing methods we use today came from a singular origin, or if different cultures have had their own interpretations of how to roast the beans. But what we do know is that English, much like coffee, keeps evolving, constantly blending and reblending. And sometimes, the result is a perfectly brewed blend of words you never saw coming. Now, your attention shifts again as you overhear another part of the conversation at the table next to you. This time, the topic is something more peculiar. A woman laughs and says, I always thought you were joking when you said that. You don't actually eat your mistakes, do you? Everyone laughs, but you can't help but wonder who in the world would eat their mistakes. And yet, there it is, another example of English at work. Eating your mistakes isn't literal, it's figurative. It refers to owning up to your errors, admitting when you've messed up, and learning from it. But where did it come from? The term eating one's words has been used for centuries, and eating mistakes is just an extension of that idea. English is full of these oddities, small phrases that seem perfectly normal in context but would make no sense to someone who's just learning the language. Eating your words, eating your mistakes, ghost roasted coffee. They're all examples of how English has a way of taking something simple and turning it into a mystery. Historians still debate the origins of these expressions. Were they coined by playwrights, philosophers, or everyday people trying to make sense of their worlds? It's impossible to pinpoint their exact origins, but one thing is for sure, language continues to evolve, and these strange phrases are part of its ever-changing nature. You take a sip of your coffee, contemplating this. It's a good cup, better than you expected. You can't help but think about how language, like coffee, is something that's often best when it's unexpected. With each sip of your coffee, you can't help but notice how language flows just like the liquid in your cup, sometimes smooth, sometimes bitter, but always unexpected. As you lean back in your chair, the bell on the door jingles, signaling that someone else has entered the cafe. Copyright. It's a man, wearing an oversized coat, drenched from the rain outside. He shakes himself off and looks around, almost as if he's searching for something. He makes his way over to the counter, and you catch snippets of his conversation with the barista. "Is this place still as good as it used to be?" he asks, shaking out his umbrella like it's a relic from a forgotten time. His voice has a trace of an accent you can't quite place, but there's something familiar about it. Maybe you've heard it before, on TV, in an old movie. "Last time I was here, I remember I ordered the usual, something simple, a regular coffee, black. But today, I'm in the mood for something a broken bar different. A regular coffee? Nothing wrong with that, except, this man has been talking for a while about how he wanted to make a change, and now he's looking to order something basic." You wonder, why the hesitation? It's like he's caught between nostalgia and the desire to try something new. Could it be the same feeling you have every time you step into an unfamiliar cafe? Copyright. Or try a new language? The curiosity to experiment, but the comfort of the known. Historians still debate the role of habit in language learning. Some argue that our brains thrive on routine, while others claim that breaking free of familiar patterns is the true path to growth. The man's indecision about ordering that regular coffee seems to mirror the internal tug-of-war we often feel when learning something new, especially English. The temptation to stick with what you know, the simple phrases you've mastered, versus the courage to dive into more complex, unfamiliar territories, like idioms, slang, and phrasal verbs. The barista finally makes a recommendation: "You should try our special today." It's a little strange at first, but you might end up liking it. It's called the A Lunar Latte. The man raises an eyebrow but gives in. "I'll give it a try." A lunar latte, a drink named after the moon. Now, you can't help but chuckle at the name. Who thinks of these things? The world of coffee is clearly full of surprises, much like the world of English. You're constantly learning, discovering, and sometimes misunderstanding things that seem perfectly clear to others. But isn't that what makes it so exciting? It's the adventure of finding out that a word you thought you knew regular, for example, has layers you never imagined. The more you listen, the more you realize that English, much like this cafe. Copyright, is full of quirks. The lunar latte is just one example of how language, like the names we give to things, it constantly changes. Words evolve, just like the way you might go from ordering a regular coffee to trying something as outlandish as a lunar latte. And as you hear the man mumble under his breath about not being sure what the moon has to do with coffee, you're reminded of how we often hesitate to embrace the unfamiliar. But, in the end, we dive in anyway. Historians still argue about how English names for everyday objects have shifted over time. Some say the original terms were simpler, while others point to the influence of globalization of coffee chains, international travel, and pop culture. English, like coffee, is constantly brewing new blends of meaning, flavor, and influence. The man takes a sip of the lunar latte. His face immediately lights up. "Not bad at all," he says with a grin. It's the same feeling you get when you finally understand an English idiom or crack the code on an advanced vocabulary word. There's that moment of realization, of the aha moment. And just like that, you find yourself wondering, what would happen if we all tried something different? What if, like the man with his lunar latte, we pushed ourselves to explore the unfamiliar and embrace the unknown when it comes to learning English? You settle back in your chair, watching the rain tap against the window in rhythmic patterns. The outside world has turned into a watercolor painting, a blurry, soft, and muted. Inside, the warmth of the cafe tilde copyright creates a comforting cocoon, a place to sit and reflect on what you've just heard. The man with the lunar latte is now deep in conversation with the barista, speaking animatedly about his past travels. You hear words like breathtaking, scenic, and underrated, but then, his tone drops a little lower, and you catch him saying, "I've always wondered what it'd be like to actually experience something without the words getting in the way." That phrase, "without the words getting in the way," really hits you. Sometimes, when you're learning English, it feels like the words do get in the way. You know what you want to say, but you can't quite find the right words. You feel your thoughts trapped in a maze of vocabulary, unsure of how to express the exact feeling you're trying to share. It's the same frustration the man seems to be describing. Words can be both the key to communication and the barrier to understanding. In language, the more words you know, the more freedom you have. But there's also the challenge of using those words in the right context, especially when learning English. You might know all the right words, but when it comes to using them fluently, things get tricky. Historians still debate whether language is an inherent skill or something we learn through experience. Some argue that humans are born with an innate ability to speak, while others point to the idea that language is a social construct, shaped by culture, history, and the environment. Either way, language is more than just words. It's the way we connect, the way we share our experiences, and the way we understand each other. You think back to your own struggles with English. How many times have you heard a native speaker use a word or phrase that left you scratching your head, unsure of its meaning? How many times have you been caught between two words, both of which are right but feel slightly off? The English language is filled with these small moments of confusion, where a single word can have multiple meanings, or where a phrase sounds perfect but is actually completely wrong in another context. Without the words getting in the way, the man's voice lingers in your mind. You start to wonder, is there a way to speak English without worrying so much about getting every word right? Can we reach that place where the words we use don't trip us up, where we can speak with confidence, knowing that, even if we make mistakes, will still be understood? It's a question that every learner asks at some point. And yet, perhaps it's not about eliminating the words that get in the way, it's about learning how to navigate through the fog of uncertainty and embrace the mistakes along the way. Mistakes, after all, are part of the process. They're the lunar lattes of language, something unexpected that might surprise you in the end. As you contemplate this, the man finishes his coffee and stands up to leave. He thanks the barista, still humming a tune to himself, as he exits into the rain. The bell above the door rings again, and you're left in the quiet aftermath of his words. It's a good reminder, sometimes, the journey of learning a language isn't about knowing all the words, it's about feeling your way through, trusting the process, and not being afraid of the occasional misstep. You take another sip of your own coffee, reflecting on this new perspective. And as you do, you realize something important. Maybe, just maybe, the words don't always need to get in the way. Maybe, in fact, the words can be part of the journey. The cafe tilde copyright begins to quiet down, the sounds of the rain outside becoming the dominant noise. You take one last look at the empty chairs around you, and for a brief moment, it feels as if you're the only person left in the world. But that's when it hits you with this cafe tilde copyright, this conversation, this momenta. It's a perfect metaphor for the challenges of mastering English. It's not about getting everything perfect from the start. It's about showing up, taking a seat, and gradually letting the words come to you. You remember something the barista said earlier when she handed you your coffee? Sometimes the best blends come from unexpected combinations. It wasn't just about the coffee, it was a subtle nod to how language works too. English isn't a recipe you follow to the letter. It's a living, breathing thing full of unexpected combinations, different influences, and constant evolution. The English you speak today might not be the same English spoken 100 years ago. And it certainly won't be the same 100 years from now. But isn't that part of the beauty of it? Take a moment to think about how language evolves. The words we use today weren't always the same. Words like Google or selfie didn't even exist a few decades ago, and now they're a regular part of our conversations. New words emerge, old words fade into obscurity, and in between, there's this constant flux of this dance of linguistic evolution that's always happening, whether you're aware of it or not. Just like the man's hesitation in ordering coffee or the barista's suggestion of something new, language is about choice. The choice to keep exploring, even when you don't know exactly where you'll end up. Historians still argue about when and how the first words were spoken. Was it the sound of early humans mimicking the natural world around them? Or was it something more deliberate? And what about the rise of writing? How did it change the way we communicate? These questions are fascinating, but the answer isn't clear-cut. What we do know is that language is both a tool and a window into the past. And each time we learn something new, whether it's an idiom, slang, or a new vocabulary word, we're participating in that never-ending cycle of transformation. You glance at the clock. The cafe tilde copyright is nearly empty now, and you wonder what it's like for the people who come and go from this place. Do they have the same experience you've had tonight? Or are they too wrapped up in the busyness of their lives to notice the little moments, the small linguistic gems that pop up when you least expect them? The couple at the counter continues their conversation, but you can't help but overhear bits of their dialogue, and once again, you're caught by a phrase. One of them says, "That's the beauty of it, though." You don't need to understand every word to know exactly what someone means. Isn't that what we all need to remember when learning English? You might not get every word perfectly right, but if you can understand the feeling, the intent, the story behind the words, then you've done it. You've crossed the barrier. The words themselves are just tools. They're the vehicle. The true power lies in understanding the bigger picture. Historians still debate how early humans actually understood each other before the formal invention of written language. Did early civilizations rely more on gestures, shared experiences, and expressions, or did they need words to make sense of their world? Regardless of the answer, the essential truth remains. Language is more than just a set of symbols. It's a bridge, a way to connect us with each other and the world. As the couple at the counter laughs and finishes their drinks, you realize something. Perhaps, in the end, learning English is like having a conversation in a cafe tilde copyright. It's about more than just speaking the words correctly. It's about understanding the context, embracing the quirks, and most importantly, letting go of the pressure to be perfect. The more you learn, the more you realize that you don't need to understand everything just enough to keep the conversation going. The night deepens, and the rain outside has settled into a steady, peaceful patter. The streetlights cast a soft glow, giving the world an almost surreal quality. As you sit back and reflect on the quiet rhythm of the cafe tilde copyright, you can't help but feel that this entire experience, this journey through English idioms, phrases, and quirks has brought something important to light. You've learned that language isn't just a tool for communication. It's a bridge that connects you to different worlds, perspectives, and ways of thinking. It's tempting, isn't it, to want everything in perfect order when learning a new language? You want to know every rule, master every pronunciation, and remember every word. But English doesn't work like that. The more you listen, the more you realize that language is a mosaic built from imperfect pieces that somehow come together to form something meaningful. It's about learning to navigate those gaps, the areas where the words aren't always crystal clear. Those gaps are where the magic happens, the places where you're forced to feel your way through the language, trusting your instincts and experience to guide you. A woman walks in, drenched from the rain, and you hear her say to the barista, "I swear, I can't figure out how to deal with my dog's behavior, but at least I can order coffee like a pro." The barista laughs, clearly amused, and replies, "Well, I think that's one of life's great mysteries, isn't it?" Dogs and coffee both require patience. You smile at the exchange. It's a light-hearted, funny moment, but it also contains a small nugget of truth. Life, much like language, requires patience. Historians still debate whether our ancestors had the same relationship with patience that we do today. Did ancient people take their time to master their words, their craft, or their art? Or was everything driven by necessity, by survival? One thing is certain: a language, like everything else, evolves over time. It adapts to our needs, our desires, and our experiences. As you reflect on these thoughts, you overhear another part of the conversation that catches your attention. One of the regulars, a man who's been sitting at the same corner table all evening, says, "You know, I've been trying to learn a new language, and I've realized something important. It's not the mistakes that matter, it's how you deal with them. The journey is what counts." How often do we focus so much on the mistakes we make in language learning? The times we mispronounce a word or use the wrong tense. We think of these as setbacks, as obstacles to our progress. But the man's words remind you of something important. It's not about avoiding mistakes, it's about learning how to bounce back from them and use them as stepping stones. It's about accepting that no one speaks perfectly, not even native speakers, and embracing the journey as part of the process. You finish your coffee, the warm cup now a comforting memory in your hands. The cafe tilde copyright is winding down, and you notice that the lights are dimming, signaling the end of a long day. You feel that same sense of satisfaction you get when you finish a good chapter in a book, like you've unlocked a new level of understanding, a deeper connection to the world around you. Just like the man with the lunar latte, or the woman struggling with her dog's behavior, we're all on this journey together. Learning English or any language isn't a straight path. It's full of detours, missteps, and unexpected discoveries. But in the end, it's those very moments of uncertainty that shape our understanding and our growth. Historians still argue whether the best way to learn a language is through immersion, formal study, or a mix of both. Maybe the answer lies in embracing all of these methods, accepting the fact that language is as much about the experience as it is about the rules. After all, how can you truly understand a language unless you dive in, make mistakes, and learn from them? As you prepare to leave the cafe tilde copyright, you realize that the night has been more than just a coffee break. It's been a journey, one that mirrors the process of learning English itself. The words may not always come easily, and the path may seem unclear at times, but each step is part of the adventure. You take one last look at the empty cup in your hands, a smile playing on your lips, knowing that tomorrow brings another opportunity to continue your journey just as it always does. As you step outside the cafe tilde copyright, the night air feels crisp, and the raindrops are still lazily drifting from the sky. The world around you seems peaceful, almost dreamlike, as if the events of the evening weren't quite real, but a memory you'll carry with you. You begin your walk back, the soft murmur of distant traffic blending with the quiet hum of the city at night. The cool breeze on your face is a welcome contrast to the warmth you felt inside the cafe tilde copyright. It's during this walk that you begin to realize something important. Learning a language, especially English, isn't just about knowing the rules, the grammar, or even the vocabulary. It's about engaging with the world around you. It's about understanding how people think, how they express their thoughts and feelings through their words, and how you, too, can find your own voice within this vast sea of language. You recall the conversation you overheard earlier, the one about dogs and coffee. The way the barista made light of life's little mysteries, turning a simple observation about dogs into something everyone could laugh about. English is full of these moments, isn't it? It's more than just a tool for communication. It's a way of connecting, of sharing in those small, often humorous, fragments of life that make up the bigger picture. But it's also about the moments when you stumble, when the words don't quite come out the way you want them to. You think about all the times you've struggled with English, the times you've tried to piece together sentences only to find that the words are just a bit out of reach. Those moments, though frustrating, are what make the journey worthwhile. They remind you that language isn't about perfection, it's about the process, the experience of learning. Historians still argue over the purpose of language, whether it was created to facilitate communication or whether it's something much deeper, tied to human connection and our shared experiences. But one thing is for sure, language has always been a reflection of who we are, what we value, and how we interact with the world. English, with all its quirks and complexities, is no different. It's a living, breathing thing that evolves alongside us, always changing, always adapting. You continue walking, your thoughts drifting back to the cafe copyright and the characters you encountered there. The man with the lunar latte who had so much to say about trying new things, the barista who spoke of patience, and the woman who didn't quite know how to deal with her dog but knew how to order coffee like a pro. They weren't just characters in a cafe copyright, they were representations of the many different ways people approach language, learning, and life. It dawns on you that English isn't just something you're learning, it's something you're experiencing, something you're living. Each conversation, each interaction, is an opportunity to practice, to experiment, and to grow. Every mistake, every awkward pause, is simply a part of the process. And as long as you keep moving forward, the words will eventually find their place. You pause for a moment at the corner, looking up at the streetlights that stretch across the road, casting long shadows on the wet pavement. The world around you feels vast, but somehow, in that moment, you feel more connected to it than ever before. It's as though, through this journey of language, you've tapped into something universal, a way to relate to others, to understand the world, and to communicate your own thoughts and feelings. Historians still debate whether language is the key to unlocking the deepest parts of the human experience. Some believe that without language, we'd be lost, unable to truly connect with each other. Others argue that language is just one part of the puzzle, that there are other, perhaps more profound, ways to understand the world. Whatever the case may be, one thing is clear: English, like every language, is a bridge that spans time, cultures, and experiences, allowing us to connect with people from all walks of life, from every corner of the globe. As you continue your walk, you realize that this journey through English, through its history, quirks, and challenges, is far from over. There will always be more to learn, more to discover, and more moments of clarity and confusion. But that's the beauty of it. The journey itself, with all its twists and turns, is just as important as the destination. The city is quieter now, the hum of traffic fading into the background as you walk deeper into the heart of the night. The world feels like it's slowing down, and for the first time, you have a moment to reflect on everything you've learned tonight, and not just about English, but about the process of learning itself. You can't help but smile at the thought. The streets are bathed in a soft glow, the air is crisp, and the city feels both large and small at the same time, much like the journey you're on with the English language. At the heart of it all is the realization that the journey of language is both humbling and exhilarating. You don't need to have everything figured out from the start. You don't need to speak perfectly or know every word in the dictionary. It's about taking one step at a time and allowing yourself to make mistakes along the way. It's about understanding that learning a language isn't a race, it's a lifelong experience that shapes who you are. You notice the night sky above you, the stars barely visible through the layers of clouds, but there, somewhere up there, the stars are always shining, just as the words you need to say are always within reach. Sometimes, you just have to let go of the fear of not being perfect to find them. It reminds you of a lesson you've heard over and over: fluency isn't about knowing all the words or being able to flawlessly construct every sentence. It's about confidence. It's about knowing that, Even when you stumble, you can still make yourself understood. That's the beauty of it. The more you practice, the more you open yourself up to the language, the more confidence you'll build, and the clearer the path will become. Historians still argue about the best way to achieve fluency in a language. Some swear by total immersion, living the language, hearing it all around you, being forced to learn in a real-world setting. Others advocate for traditional study, grinding through textbooks, learning rules and vocabulary until it feels second nature. But perhaps the most important lesson is that fluency is a state of mind, not a list of qualifications. It's a mindset that says, I'm ready to learn, ready to fail, and ready to grow. The soft sound of your footsteps on the wet pavement is soothing, almost meditative. It's a reminder that learning isn't always about pushing yourself hard. Sometimes, it's about allowing yourself the time and space to grow at your own pace. The city around you continues to change, but the steady rhythm of your walk reminds you that it's okay to slow down. You don't need to rush this process. The journey is long, and the path will twist and turn, but each step is an opportunity to improve, to understand, and to enjoy the ride. You think about how language has shaped so much of who you are. The words you speak, the phrases you use, the idioms that have been passed down from generation to generation.